Hello and welcome back to the LFS podcast with me, Caoimhan Ferris. This week on the show, another manager in as Dean Smith becomes Leicester manager until the end of the season. And after returning for a second time, Frank Lampard's first game back as Chelsea manager ends in defeat at Molineux. Plus, it was a classic Premier League game at Anfield as Arsenal escaped with a 2-2 draw to narrowly extend the gap at the top. All of that and more to come on this week's LFS podcast. Hello everyone and welcome in to the 5th episode of the LFS podcast with me, Caoimhan Ferris, where we talk every week about the big stories of the footballing world. This week we've got an abundance of stories for you from Scottish Premiership, the National League, a lot of Premier League stories to tell you about this week as well. Plus, a look ahead to this week's Champions League games as well. All that to come over the next 20 minutes, so do stay in for this one with another jam-packed podcast for you this week. But we start on the managerial front, and that is that Dean Smith has been named Leicester City boss until the end of the season. Smith left Norwich earlier this season after previous spells at Aston Villa and Brentford. Leicester are in huge trouble in the relegation zone following Saturday's home defeat by Bournemouth, 2 points from safety with 8 games left. The challenge in front of us is clear, but it's one myself and my coaching team have experienced before, Smith told the club website. With the quality in this squad and the number of games remaining, it's very much achievable. Well, his first game in charge of Leicester will be away to Premier League champions Manchester City on Saturday. Craig Shakespeare returns to the King Power Stadium as Smith's assistant manager. He was also part of Claudio Ranieri's backroom team, when Leicester won the league in 2016. They will also include the likes of John Terry, who's also served under Dean Smith at Aston Villa, along with Adam Sadler, who took charge of the Leicester game at home against Bournemouth. Well, it'll be a big appointment, and there was a lot of talk over the weekend about who would take up the role as the Leicester City manager. And of course, after Brendan Rodgers and the club agreed a deal for Rodgers to part ways with the Leicester City club, but ultimately there was a lot of talk, Rafa Benitez, Jesse Marsch as well were two other big candidates that were named over the weekend, but it is Dean Smith, and interestingly enough, I think that'll be a very good appointment. It's an interesting decision until the end of the season, and we'll see what comes of that, because I talked about that with Chelsea and Frank Lampard. Until the end of the season, are they going to make that mistake of, well, and it might not always necessarily be a mistake, but make that decision of, if he does well to the end of the season and keeps Leicester up, what do they do next season? Will they go totally new again, or will they keep the trust of the manager that kept them in the division? And it's a big decision for Leicester and their team, the board level, to decide that at the end of the season. But it's whether they stay in the division or not is the big question. Leicester sit 19th at the moment, 2 points clear of safety. They've lost 4 of their last 5, only picking up points away at Brentford. They've got City to come next. It's not going to get any easier for Leicester before the end of the season. And, they don't have a game where you would say, oh, that's a banker for 3 points. They've got, the only one I would think of would probably be Everton at home. Would probably be the only game that I would think Leicester could really do a number on Everton. But again, with a relegation team, they don't have consistency, and they don't have that. And they've just been beaten at home against another relegation battler, Bournemouth. So are they able to do it? The question is we're still yet to see the evidence. And with 8 games to go for Leicester, it's going to be really difficult to see. They've got Wolves at home, Leeds away, Everton. That's after Manchester City, by the way, sorry. So they've City away, Wolves at home, Leeds away, Everton at home, Fulham away, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, and West Ham at home. I think if Leicester want to stay in the division, I think they need to get something before the 1st of May. They have 4 games until that game between Leicester and Everton on the 1st of May. I don't see them getting anything against Liverpool, Newcastle, or West Ham. Although Liverpool, you never know with Liverpool on their away form. But Newcastle and West Ham, I don't see them getting anything. And Liverpool will be a struggle too. Fulham away will be a tough place to go. But I think they need to. They need to. I don't know. They need to just be more defensively solid. Leicester haven't lacked. Well, they have lacked goals. They've scored 40 goals, which isn't awful for a team at the bottom, but also would be wanted to have been better. But they've conceded too many. They've conceded 52 goals, and that's where the issue is, and something that Dean Smith will have to focus on whenever he enters the job and when he takes it up this week. Before that City game on Saturday, they need to really, lock that down, make sure that nothing gets behind the defence stays solid, and stop conceding so many goals early on and in big games. I don't know when the last time Leicester kept a clean sheet was, but it was a good while ago. I'm just looking back because it's a long while ago actually. I'm still going here, looking back through the results. The last time they kept a clean sheet was in November, before the World Cup. The last game before the World Cup was away at West Ham United. They won 2-0. That was their last clean sheet. Since then, they have picked up just 8 points in the league. Not good enough from Leicester, and that's exactly why they are where they are. And we'll wait and see what Dean Smith can do, but it'll be some job, really some job. Speaking of some job, the return of Frank Lampard. Well, he made a losing return to the Chelsea hot seat as Wolves eased their Premier League relegation worries with a hard-earned victory. Chelsea legend Lampard was predictably given a rapturous reception from the travelling fans at Molineux following his appointment as caretaker manager 27 months after being sacked from the role. Yet Chelsea's all-time record goal scorer was unable to arrest the poor form that had led to Graham Potter's sacking, as mid-table Blues failed to score for the third consecutive game en route to an 11th league defeat of the season. The Wolves were on the front foot, throughout and deserved their win, which came after a sweet finish by Mateus Nunes, the Portugal midfielder's first goal for the club since joining from Sporting Lisbon last August. Well, I mean, where do we go with Chelsea? Only under Frank Lampard, only new, and give him time, but he has 8 games to get Chelsea in a decent position. 11th in the table is awful. At least it can't get any worse. They're 8 points clear of Wolves, who've just beaten them. In 11th, they've got Fulham, Brentford. Well, the Fulham are on the same number of points as them, but Fulham have a game in hand. It's difficult to see how high Chelsea could get. I don't think they're going to get any higher than probably 9th at this point in the season. Unless they go on a really crazy run of form, which, let's be honest, do we really think is going to happen? Yes, Frank Lampard is going to give them something different. Because one thing you can't say about Frank Lampard's teams, that at least Chelsea scored goals. They weren't the best defensively, but they scored goals. And that's exactly what Chelsea need, and that's what they need to figure out. They just need to score. They've conceded 30 goals this season, or 31, something around that. That's pretty good. That's losing a goal a game. Considering where they are in the table, you would probably expect it to be a bit worse, but it's the fact that they're not scoring goals that is the problem. And as I said there, 3 successive games without putting a ball in the net is really letting them down at the minute. And it's one thing that Frank Lampard will really need to wrestle with because, again, as I said, difficult fixtures for Chelsea as well to end the season. They've a game still to be decided. That away game against Manchester United, that was postponed. Of course, Man United in FA Cup action next weekend. But Chelsea have Brighton, Brentford, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, Man City and Newcastle before the end of the season. I don't count any of those games as an easy game. Brentford at home would probably be one you would think maybe they could get something there. Maybe get 3 points in that one as they're at home, but they've got an away game against Arsenal, away to Bournemouth as well, away to City before the end of the season. They've got home games against Newcastle, Forest, and Brighton in there. They're not easy games because every one of those teams has something really to fight for. Arsenal fighting for the league, Brentford want to push European places, so do Brighton. Bournemouth want to stay out of the relegation zone, so do Nottingham Forest. Man City pushing for the league, and Newcastle in top 4. And then, of course, Man United in top 4 as well. But that's one thing with Frank Lampard. The Wolves was probably his easiest game, and they've got nothing out of it. They've lost that game. And with Frank Lampard back in the side and back as the manager, I'm not doubting they'll score goals. Believe me, I think that's one thing that they will improve on, is the goal scoring. But it's whether he can get them in a good enough position at the point of playing those big games that they are capable. Because let's be honest, the games that they're playing, they've got Arsenal, who've conceded 29 goals, Man City have conceded 27, Newcastle have conceded 21, Brighton who've conceded 36, Brentford have conceded 40, Fulham have conceded... No, they don't play Fulham, sorry. Wrong team. Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest are probably bankers. They've conceded over 50 goals. But what I'm saying is that the vast majority of those teams that they're playing have good defensive records in comparison with their goal scoring. All of those teams that I just named, but the bar Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, have a plus goal difference, which is assuring that they can score goals, but they can also keep them out of their own net as well. Which will be difficult for Frank Lampard to really get a grip of and try and get them on that free-flowing football for the club. Right, I'm rambling on a lot this week. A lot to talk about, as I said. There's a lot to get through. I'm not even anywhere near halfway yet. Let's talk about the team that are coming back to the Premier League. Burnley celebrated their return to the Premier League with victory over second place Sheffield United, who played most of the game with 10 men. The Blades had goalkeeper Wes Foderingham sent off after 17 minutes for bringing down Nathan Tella just outside the box, but the visitors kept Burnley, who sealed an immediate return to the top flight on Friday, out of the remainder of the first half at Turf Moor. And it talks about the match. The win meant Burnley extend their lead at the top over Sheffield United to 14 points, while the Blades have a 5-point cushion and a game in hand on third place Luton. Sheffield United inflicted one of Burnley's 2 championship defeats of the season when they thrashed them 5-2 in November, but since then, Vincent Kompany's side have gone unbeaten in the league and are champions in waiting. They need 5 points from the remaining 6 matches to secure the championship title. They were promoted after beating Middlesbrough on Good Friday and were given an early helping hand by their closest challengers in this game. Well, they set 14 points clear, 90 points. They need 5 points from the remaining 6 games to confirm the title. They are unbelievable this season, Burnley. And the 2 games that we've covered here on LFS have been really good games. Yes, the Sheffield United one was a bit destroyed with a red card, but Burnley playing lovely football, really playing the right way, and that's what we love to see. Really, really good from Burnley, and what Vincent Kompany's done there in this only season that he's been at the club, what he's done has been fantastic to get them back into the Premier League. The first time of asking, pushing them towards a league title as well. Fantastic, and it'll be great to see them back next season. Burnley join it, and maybe Sheffield United will be joining them too. Sheffield United are 5 points clear of third place Luton and have a game in hand over Luton as well, so they should be joining them, but it's still a long way to go. 6 games to go in the championship in that one. Another title race that is more or less wrapped up. Celtic looked destined to retain the Scottish Premiership title after crushing Rangers' hopes with a thrilling derby victory. Hugo Furuhashi netted either side of James Tavernier's sumptuous free kick at a raucous Celtic Park, devoid of away supporters, before Jota rolled in the host's third. Tavernier headed his 100th Rangers goal to set up a nervy finale, with the Rangers captain nodding inches wide moments later, but Celtic held on to a 3-2 victory to go 12 points clear with 7 games less, and with their vastly superior goal difference, it means a maximum of 3 more wins will ensure Celtic will retain the trophy, while Rangers manager Michael Beale is left to lick his wounds after suffering the first league defeat of his tenure. Of course, both sides met earlier in the year in the league, and it was a 2-2 draw away at Ibrox, and that was seen as a good result for Rangers, but ultimately they probably would have needed to do more in that game and kick on, because Celtic have been absolutely unstoppable. 88 points, 31 games. Celtic have dropped points, I think, twice or 3 times this season, and they have a 100% home record. That game there was their 16th home game of the season, and they have won all 16. Celtic 12 points clear, 75 goal difference. That is 29 goals more than Rangers. That's unbelievable. Celtic under Ange Postecoglou looking absolutely unstoppable, and it's only a matter of time before they get their league. It's all title talk this week. We will get to the Premier League title race in a moment. That is the title of this podcast, but we will get to that in a moment. After this one, another huge game and another huge title race in the National League this time, and Wrexham beat Notts County by 3-2. It was a sublime Ben Foster penalty save that saw them back first place in the National League. Wrexham on 103 points. Well, a brilliant John Bostock free kick gave Notts County the lead, but Paul Mullen bullied his way onto a cross to equalise, then picked out Jacob Mendy to put Wrexham ahead, only for Kyle Cameron to head county level. Elliot Lee converted Mullen's cross to restore Wrexham's advantage to 3-2, but it needed a Ben Foster save in the 97th minute to save Kedwin Scott's last gasp penalty to rescue the win. And you would have to argue the title race is probably over now. They're 3 points clear, Wrexham. There's about, 3 games left? 4 games left for Wrexham, 3 games left for Notts County. And the title race is more or less over now, but it's such a good title race, and it was great to, watching the games and seeing the goals going in. A crazy game. Wrexham winning that one. They have a game in hand over Notts County, Wrexham, and are 3 points clear, so that's why you would say the title race is over. But Ryan Reynolds, and I said it, it was said, that is a Hollywood-worthy script. To be 1-0 down, then to come back to 2-1, then 2-2, then lead 3-2, and then for your goalkeeper to save a penalty in the 97th minute to get the victory for you is perfect for a Hollywood story. I have to give a shout out to Notts County, because a lot of people will say Wrexham, well, they are getting all this money, they're getting this attention, but Notts County as well. What they've done without all that, and are still in a title race against Wrexham. They have reached 100 points in 43 games, Notts County. That's unbelievable. Fantastic as well. So a really good quality. And that consistency in the 5th tier of English football is immense. So congratulations to Wrexham, but fabulous as well from Notts County. Moving on to another title race that is far from over, and to the Premier League. And Roberto Firmino scored a dramatic late equaliser as Arsenal's lead at the top of the Premier League was cut to 6 points in an incident-packed encounter with Liverpool at Anfield. The Gunners were in cruise control with a 2-goal lead inside the first half hour as they went in search for their first win at Liverpool since 2012, but were left bitterly disappointed as they paid the price for losing their discipline at a crucial time. Gabriel Martinelli pounced on sloppy Liverpool defending to put Arsenal ahead after 8 minutes. Then Gabriel Jesus rose unmarked between Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson to head home at the Cop End. Liverpool sparked into life after a flashpoint between Granit Xhaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold late in the first half. Mohamed Salah scoring at the far post just before the break to set up a thriller. There was a bizarre incident at the end of the first half. I'll talk about this at the end of the first half, when referee's assistant Konstantin Hatzidakis appeared to elbow Liverpool defender Robertson as the teams left the field. We'll talk about that and the whole incident and all the drama about that afterwards. In a dramatic second half, Salah missed his second successive penalty when he shot wide after Rob Holding fouled Jota before Firmino rose at the far post to head home Alexander-Arnold's cross with 3 minutes left. In a frantic climax, Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale, who had already saved crucially from Darwin Núñez, produced 2 incredible stops from Salah and Ibrahima Konate as Mikel Arteta's pace setters had to settle for a point, with Liverpool fully deserving their share of the spoils for a stirring fight back. It means the destiny of the title is now in Man City's hands, as they have a game in hand and have a home game against Arsenal to come. Well, an incredible game, I have to say. Probably one of the best games of the season. It was full of incidents, full of drama, full of excitement, full of goals as well, full of chances, chances at both ends right the way through the game that could have brought it any which way. But 2-2 it finished. Fabulous result, fabulous game, and what a what a title race we have in the Premier League. You know, it was never going to be that easy. We were always going to have a dramatic climax and a dramatic end of the season. You know, it was never going to be Arsenal's by ease, but, you know, it will be 2 points dropped for Arsenal. 2 goals up away at Anfield. You know, you would absolutely bite your arm off for that if you got the chance at any point at Anfield. But I think Arsenal dropped those points because of Granit Xhaka. I genuinely believe that. The Anfield crowd was down and out. I'm not saying they weren't behind the team. I was saying they're down and out. Their team weren't really offering very much in an attacking sense. Arsenal were 2-0 up. They were in a difficult position, Liverpool. But one thing you do not do, and Arsenal and Mikel Arteta have said it, you do not want to rile up the Anfield crowd. You rile up the Anfield crowd and you've probably lost the game. The reason that is because Liverpool get the crowd behind them and anything is possible. We've seen it on too many occasions at Anfield that Liverpool get the crowd behind the team and the team go and produce crazy things. And to get a draw at Arsenal, at home to Arsenal to be fair, but a draw against the league leaders for Liverpool who've had a treacherous season is a pretty good result in the end. And to be almost deserving of the 3 points, never mind just the 1 point, you know, with the chances that Liverpool created, they probably did deserve the 3 points on the day, but that's why the title is Arsenal escaped with a draw, because they did. You know, Liverpool in those last 15 minutes, that whole of the second half, Liverpool were just miles on top and were completely dominant against Arsenal, and absolutely fantastic game, and what a result. Especially a result for Manchester City. It keeps the title quite close. I speak about that assistant referee and the whole elbow situation. You know, I'll put a picture up in the post, but my God, what is going on with that assistant referee? What would make you think of even doing that? You know, and the point and the argument that I would make is, if a player, Alexander Mitrovic, can get that for touching a referee, yes, no doubt, he touched him in an aggressive way and it was totally wrong. Not disputing that whatsoever. But if a player can do that to a referee and get an 8-match ban, why is Konstantin Hatzidakis not getting a similar punishment for literally elbowing a player in the face? Yes, he was probably trying to hold him off or whatever, but at the end of the day, you can't retaliate. And one of the former referees, Mark Clattenburg, one that I don't often agree with, Mark Clattenburg, put out with a great statement. He said, you know, no matter what abuse the referees get, whether Robertson even gave the referee any or the assistant any abuse, under no circumstances could a referee respond or an official respond, even verbally, never mind physically. So, you know, I'm not saying that Konstantin Hatzidakis should never be involved in a Premier League game again, but he should get repercussions. There should be repercussions for this, because you just can't do that. And, you know, it just has to be stamped out and it has to end where the way it has. Get rid of it. No more of it. Right then, quick look at this week's Champions League games. Of course, this is going out on Tuesday, so you will already know the results of Benfica, Inter Milan, and Manchester City against Bayern Munich as well on the Tuesday night. But we're going to talk about Wednesday's fixtures, and that is the games between AC Milan and Napoli in the all-Italian game, and Real Madrid against Chelsea, the current European champions, coming up against Frank Lampard's Chelsea at the Bernabeu. Real Madrid, Chelsea, what a classic game. It will be live on LFS, but what a game that is to look forward to. You know, Chelsea have probably the toughest end of the draw. You know, the likes of Bayern Munich, City, Real Madrid, the other 3 teams in your side of the draw with Chelsea. It looks pretty much impossible for Chelsea to progress, but you never know. It could be done. And these two sides met last season, and Real Madrid with an incredible comeback, of course, in that game. What a game it was at the Bernabeu that last season. Chelsea had such an advantage and Real Madrid stole it. But my goodness me, the Champions League is so tight this season. You know, Bayern Munich could win it, City could win it, Real Madrid could win it, Napoli are another good team. And then we could see teams that maybe could cause a shock. Benfica, Inter, Chelsea would be a shock, AC. A lot of Italian teams this season in the Champions League. 3 Italian teams, which very, very rare. Of course, Napoli, it's their first time in a Champions League quarter-final, so that'll be interesting to see how they deal with it away at AC Milan in that one. But what a set of games we have coming up in the Champions League, and there'll be some real excitement in there as well. Right, let's go run you through all of the Premier League results from match week 31, I believe. It all started on Saturday lunchtime as Manchester United beat Everton by 2-0, goals from Marcus Rashford and Scott McTominay on the day for 2-0. Aston Villa got a 2-0 win at home against Nottingham Forest. Newcastle held on to a 2-1 win away at Brentford, the first time Brentford have lost the game in the Premier League after scoring the first goal. West Ham got a big away win at Fulham to keep their hopes of staying in the division alive, with Bournemouth also getting a big 1-0 away win at Leicester, fellow relegation battlers. Gary O'Neill's doing a very good job there. Spurs stole the victory against Brighton in that controversial 3 o'clock game, with all the refereeing decisions being wrong. The referee awful in that game. Brighton probably should have got more than what they did. They got absolutely nothing out of the game. They should have got at least a point, but it was Harry Kane that got the winning goal for Spurs in that one. Wolves got a 1-0 win at home against Chelsea as Frank Lampard returned as Chelsea manager, but Wolves rolled them over at the first time of asking. City put the pressure on Arsenal ahead of their game against Liverpool with a 4-1 win away at Southampton. Another incredible victory on the south coast for Manchester City against bottom of the league. And then early games, no shortage of goals this weekend as Crystal Palace beat Leeds by 5-1 at Ellen Road. Leeds were 1-0 up in that game and were deservedly 1-0 up in that game. It was a 1-1 at half time, but Leeds, you would have said, would have been the better of the two teams at the first half. But Palace, unbeatable in the second half as Roy Hodgson keeps his 100% record as he returns to the club and is the oldest serving manager in the Premier League. And Liverpool and Arsenal played out a 2-2 draw in a classic game at Anfield. A huge result for Liverpool as they try and push for European football, and a disappointing result for Arsenal ultimately as they look to put the push for their first league title in 19 years. What a weekend of Premier League football. Just end with a table update. Arsenal sit 6 points clear at the top. City have a game in hand though on Arsenal, and will also have a game at home against Arsenal to come before the end of the season. It looks like top 4 might all but be wrapped up as Newcastle and Man United on 56 points apiece, and both have games in hand against 5th place Spurs, who are 3 points behind them. In terms of the European fight, Aston Villa have somehow come out of nowhere. 4 straight victories for Unai Emery's side as they sit in 6th in the league after being threatened with possible relegation under Steven Gerrard earlier in the season, but a credible run of form for them as they sit 6th. Brighton also up there, their first defeat in 5 games, their defeat away at Tottenham. Liverpool continue their form, trying to push into more positive form after defeats to Manchester City and a draw away at Chelsea. A draw at home to Arsenal is certainly not half bad. Brentford, Fulham and Chelsea finish off the top 11 with the relegation battlers all still quite tight, but it's starting to see a gap emerging as Palace off for 2 straight wins, Wolves unbeaten in their last 2, and wins for West Ham and Bournemouth in their last games are seeing them pushing away from the bottom 5, it seems now. Defeats for Leeds, Everton, Nottingham Forest, Leicester and Southampton see them all sit within 6 points of each other. Leeds under real threat, 29 points. Everton just above Nottingham Forest in that 18th spot. Everton in 17th on goal difference, both on 27 points. Leicester on 25. And Southampton, rock bottom, on 23 points. All of those bottom 3, by the way, haven't won in all of their last 5 games, with 2 of them losing 4 out of 5. Southampton, the only team to pick up 2 points in that bottom 3. Interesting enough. And that is how the LFS podcast ends this week. A bit longer one, just around about hitting the 30-minute mark, but a really exciting podcast for you this week. An abundance of stories as Dean Smith becomes Leicester manager, Frank Lampard loses his first game in charge of Chelsea, Burnley are back in the big time, Arsenal drop points at Anfield, Celtic confirm the title against Rangers, Hollywood-worthy script at the racecourse as Wrexham beat Notts County, and a preview of the Champions League games plus all the Prem games as well. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Don't forget to follow us on social media as well, on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at LF Streams 2 on all of those platforms to follow us, stay updated with everything that we have going on the channel. But once again, thank you very much indeed for listening and watching this week, and we'll be back with another LFS podcast next week. Bye-bye.